I heard what I thought was a tree limb crack in half, break.
James Thomason was in a bad state. Sitting alone in a remote part of the Mount Jefferson wilderness, his leg was shattered, the pain was seething, and all he could do was wait as his friend went to try to find help.
Any movement caused pain. That's when the fear set in. Is this where I die?
James and a friend had decided to make the trip from Portland to do a fun weekend backpacking excursion. But when the two went off trail and James slipped, the plans for a fun weekend adventure quickly turned into a nightmare.
The plan was I was going to stay there by myself all night, and he was going to go try to get help.
Thankfully for James, his friend would encounter 3 kids on the trail with experience, knowledge, and wherewithal well beyond their years.
This summer, we went on about a 2-week backpacking trip. It was about 150 miles total is what we ended up finishing. It was me and my sister and one of our friends.
I'm 17.
17.
I am 15.
Shiloh, Marah, and Caden were approached by James's friend Carl as he was heading to try to get help.
Told us that his friend broke his ankle and he was going to start hiking out for help. And if we saw anyone, try to help out. We offered help and he kind of jokingly said, well, I don't know really what you could do unless you have a satellite phone.
They didn't just have one, they had 2 satellite phones and quickly began to devise a plan. Shiloh would call and coordinate rescue efforts, while Marah and Caden went to find and help James.
Caden packed up all of our survival equipment and food, a couple sleeping bags and pads, and headlamps and first aid. And then we just started hiking to where we thought he was.
Search and rescue was texting me on my satellite phone. So we, because we knew, I knew where it was from the PCT, and they knew how to get in from their side, but we didn't know what trail junction to get to the PCT. So I had to run, or hiked and ran like 4 miles back down the Hunts Creek Trail, and then flagged off a marker there, and took flagging and marked out which junction to take.
Rapidly evaporating daylight, along with an ominous storm front moving in, would prove to make the task anything but straightforward.
So we had this big storm come in and we just watched it fill up the spool. It's me and Caden. It was like 10 at night, and we just watched it blow down. That was a little disheartening. So we got to get down there somehow.
Super dense fog all up on this bowl, and like really cold. Started to get there, and that night I got a little bit of snow, I got some rain. Pretty not great conditions.
Shiloh worked all through the night, coordinating and flagging routes for search and rescue. In all, he ran 17.5 miles with nothing more than a headlamp to light his way.
Glad we were in the right place at the right time.
Marah and Caden eventually made their way to where they thought James was, and eventually were able to locate him.
He started yelling to tell us where he was. And so we got there, and I just started assessing him. I had wilderness first aid and have been prepared for a lot of situations like that. And so we just checked on him. He'd been in and out of shock all the previous day, but he was trying to rest.
It was pretty gnarly, and we'd move him around, and you could tell he was in a lot of pain. So,
at daybreak, search and rescue made their way to James, thanks to Shiloh's efforts. But it was apparent manpower wouldn't be enough.
Hiking down even, it was just like, this is really steep. It's gonna be hard to get him out.
Pretty obvious once we got down there that we had a big wheeled gurney that was in about 4 pieces that people were carrying, and we weren't gonna be able to get him out by foot.
As I was laying there in the open, in the snow, everything was cleared out. I was just waiting to hear the sound of the chopper. This was something I'd never ever experienced before, and it was, really loud, very dramatic. He lifted into the air, and that was the first time since I had broken my leg that I had really moved my leg or my body that much. And so the pain at that point was excruciating, and the emotions were just at a heightened level, ultimately relieved and overwhelmed at that point.
was a really neat experience. It was really neat, had all these skills for a while, and practiced with them and worked with them, but never really had a time in the field that they were all needed. So it was really neat, everything from the GPS and the map skills to search and rescue and first aid and wilderness first aid and everything like that. It was really neat to finally use all those in the field.
Those three people are exceptional, whether they're 15, 17, 30, 50, it doesn't matter. Like, what they did for me, a stranger, they put their trip on hold for someone they didn't even know. They didn't know anything about me. They just knew that someone needed help and they were there.
In Bend, Eric Lindstrom, Central Oregon Daily News.